Aaron, Dave, thanks for coming back. I thought it was important to have a conversation with both of you guys in regards to what's been happening with Michael Burry over the last, what are we at now, 8 or 9 days, in regards to NVIDIA, Palantir, and you're hearing a lot about OpenAI. And my first thought was to reach out to you, Aaron, and get your thoughts. And you said you had some thoughts on it, and I'm going to turn it over to you and tell me what you initially thought when you saw that.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on this. It was actually on a panel with Ed Dowd at the Brownstone Institute event. I've been talking to people quite a bit about AI because in general, I have a different take. In fact, I've been spending a lot of time with Mike Adams, the health ranger, who has just created and released his own AI called Enoch, which you can download on your own computer. And it's trained on completely different data than any other model. I mean, it's trained on all of the alternative health information that he has. And now he's actually gathered every scientific paper that's ever been published and so on and so forth. And so there are a lot of people that take the view that AI is a bubble. And so we have this situation that's emerged where there are some people who think that AI is not a threat, it's a bust, it's going to go away. And I think that is, as someone who uses AI all of the time, I've actually spent a bunch of time building 6 different websites and everything else. And I've been in tech since 95. I will tell you, it's not going away.
There actually are people who think it's going away.
Oh yeah, you would be amazed. There are people that are saying, "Oh, it's just a fad. It's not a threat to my job. It's nothing. It's nothing to worry about." This is
Krugman said the internet was a fad.
Yeah,
Krugman said the internet was a fad.
And he said the fact, it was like the fax machine.
Fax machine, yeah.
And so there are a lot of people that are in this camp, and to me, it's kind of, when I talk about cryptocurrency, I say, well, digital currency is not bad. If it's a CBDC or a government-regulated stablecoin, it's bad. If it's a privacy coin, it's actually an improvement. The same is true with AI. So in my mind, the battle right now is if we can create and take advantage of these open source models and control what data goes into it and pick which model is used to access it, then it can be something that is profoundly liberating. Somebody actually gave a talk, and I thought it was a great analogy, but this actually expresses what I think a lot of people believe, which is that AI is going to take away our ability to think, and we're going to go from being the person controlling the remote control to the TV. That's possible. It could go that way. If you are going to just use ChatGPT or use these big models and you're going to use them passively, then that's the case. But if you actually use your attention and intent and actually, control how you use this technology, it's the complete different outcome. So in my view, this is actually the big battle going on right now. Now, as to the bubble aspect of it, so a lot of people will say, well, this is like the dot-com bubble. The thing about the dot-com era is, yes, there was a lot of really, I started my first company in 95, which was before the bubble. It was actually at the beginning. I lived through that entire era directly. And certainly there were a lot of ridiculous companies and a lot of malinvestment that went on, but that was fueled largely by Wall Street just pumping stuff out to retail. The actual dot-com era produced some of the largest, most powerful companies in the world today. So to look at it and to try to compare it and say the AI thing is like a bubble like the dot-com era would be to deny the fact that the largest and most powerful companies in the world right now came out of that era. And I actually think what's going to come out of the AI era is significantly larger than even that. Now, there will be a lot of bubbles within this, and this is something that people don't understand about the psychology of Silicon Valley and the way that these firms operate. Because I remember this because I was competing. I actually started my company a week before Jeff Bezos founded Amazon. And the thing about
What was your company? What did you do?
We started out as a kind of an online shopping mall that we built 22 of our own virtual stores, partnered with distributors. We had 3.5 million products. We didn't warehouse the products. We worked with distributors to do the drop shipping. And then I pivoted the business model to creating customized websites for brands that had traffic but didn't have e-commerce. So we took all of our infrastructure for order processing and our vendor network, and then went to websites that actually had traffic that they were trying to monetize and married the two together. But we were really early at this. In 1995, I remember I had to have my math professor from Duke come down to talk about how we were going to encrypt credit card information, because this was actually a gating item. I used to have physical brochures to explain to people, to investors and other people that, hey, yeah, people will actually be willing to use the computer in their credit card information. I mean, that's how early this was in the process. And so anyway, but at the time I thought, well, Jeff Bezos seemed nuts, because if you recall, Amazon wasn't profitable for a long time, like maybe over a decade. And I remember at one point he was like on the front cover of Time magazine and everybody's saying, oh, this is a bubble and he's losing money. No, his strategy was to be the dominant player. Silicon Valley's view is these are all or nothing. It's winner take all. Peter Thiel talks about this in 0 to 1. These people want monopolies and they want complete control, because they know if they end up in this winner take all situation, they get all the spoils. And so you end up being a multi-trillion-dollar company, or in this AI realm, maybe even an order or two magnitude greater than $1 trillion company. So this is why you have companies like Google spending $3 billion on one developer, Facebook spending $1.5 billion on one developer. And people are sitting there looking at this saying, oh, this is crazy. This is a bubble. It will be a bubble for all but, the one or two that remain standing. But the one or two that remain standing will probably become the most powerful company on earth.
So I was on a panel discussion last week, and this dichotomy came up, and you could hear it in people's descriptions of AI, whether it was a bubble or not. And I think to say it's a bubble like in tulip bulbs is not correct at all. I mean, I think AI, if you use your wildest imagination, just like with the internet, you will not be able to imagine what's coming, right? That it'll be that big. But on the other hand, I believe it's very much a bubble in terms of what it will do to investors who are up to their asses in this shit.
This episode is brought to you by Vaulted, launched by McIlvaney Financial Group. The simplest and most affordable way to own physical gold and silver. Physical gold is the only asset outside of the control of the government and banking system. They can print dollars, but they can't print gold. Click on the promo link in the show notes or go to vaulted.blbvux.net/coffeeandamike.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So therefore the term bubble is being used wrong to me, bubble is the financial term.
Yep.
And it's being commandeered by people saying AI is a bubble and it's going to go away. No. Bubble is a term that says investors are going to get eviscerated.
You're right. And actually, I think the differentiator is I would say it's the difference between vaporware and a bubble, and people are confusing the terms, right? I think there are a lot of people that say bubble and mean vaporware. It's not vaporware, but it is going to...
clarify vaporware for me, just so I know we're on the same definition.
I mean, vaporware is where you say something, a technology is going to do something, and there's a lot of investment, and it turns out the emperor had no clothes and the technology didn't work.
So it's just horseshit.
Yeah, horseshit. And whereas, the bubble concept is what you described. I am sure there are a lot of pension funds, and there's going to be so much overinvestment in these data centers. And part of the big thesis right now is it's this big battle for compute power. But the assumption within that is that AI is going to work the same way that it does right now, which is pretty inefficient. There have been big breakthroughs, even in terms of the way AI works, that will require using less data.
So it'll be software driven, not hardware driven.
Correct. So I would not, people that are investing in data centers or whatever, that's probably going to be a pretty bad area. But I don't invest in any.
So here, for example, you can answer a question for me that I can then use at home. They want to build a data center in some facility in my hometown. And the town leaders are debating this. And what I said to them, I said, here's the deal. If you do it, make sure that your model allows the town to come out okay if the thing is belly up in 2 years. And I said, do not spend any of the money until it is in the bank. Do not build a school projecting 20 years of revenue. You will destroy the town if you do this. And they don't understand.
That is absolutely the right take on this. And usually towns make the wrong decision on this. They make the short-term decision. They don't think through the long-term consequences or even try to think about the long-term consequences, because politicians work from election to election. It's even worse at the local level than at the national level in many cases, if one can imagine such a thing. But yeah, if you go and build out a whole bunch of infrastructure, you make a whole bunch of projections, assuming that the data center thing is going to be there, you're going to have a bad time, in my opinion. I also think we're facing something else on the data front. We have, interestingly,
do you think that bubble is fairly imminent? It's always dangerous predicting when, but does it feel like somehow it's coming to a head, or does it feel like, like Sam Altman said, yeah, it's a bubble, but it's going to run for years. I'm going, nah, that's not a bubble then, dude. Bubbles burst.
I don't think it's going to be in the actual near term, just because I just saw a chart of what the main, X and OpenAI and Claude and Amazon are partnered and everything else. There's already a scheduled build out that's pretty substantial for a while. The problem is we're going to run into a bigger issue, which is that our grid is actually fundamentally broken and can't handle adding on a lot of capacity. And then we have competition. I actually put out a series of satirical memes last week, kind of styled like 1940s era propaganda posters, where I truly believe, and they're going to use this whole idea of it's the US versus China, battling for AI, AGI supremacy. And they're going to start asking people to ration water and to ration electricity. And they're going to do it under this banner of national pride in fighting China, which is, of course,
Jensen Huang is already doing this.
Yep. And it's completely fake, because so let's talk about how absurd. The first announcement that was made by Trump on this was Operation Stargate, which is a partnership amongst Oracle, OpenAI, and SoftBank, a Japanese company. And then Palantir is in there as well. All of those are global technocratic companies working in countries all over the world. So the idea that you're saying we have to invest all of this money and we need to make this about national defense, all you're actually doing is funding what, in my opinion, is actually going on, which is not a battle amongst nations. It's a battle amongst corporations for who's going to control the global technocracy.
The WEF 2.0.
By the way, SoftBank.
Would it be the WEF 2.0 then, Aaron? I mean, I keep saying that.
Say
but
that
that's
again. What 2.0?
World Economic Forum 2.0 with these people.
Right.
Replace Davos with these people.
Or in some cases, they're the same people. I mean, you have Peter Thiel's part of Bilderberg. Alex Karp is part of Bilderberg. I mean, these are actually one and the same. There's a belief. I mean, I saw Alex Jones. He seems to think we've defeated the globalists. We've actually
my God.
We've emboldened a different set of technocrats. It's all about technocracy, and in my opinion, it's accelerated by 5 years in this first year under Trump. When you look at Real ID, which is digital, in 11 states, it's going to be rolled out to 20 states by the end of this year. I just saw an announcement on my X feed that Apple just announced a digital ID. So you're going to be able to take your digital ID, put it into your Apple wallet, and then use that with TSA. I don't know why people are cheering this, but I mean, this is a rapid acceleration. You have the Genius Act, which is a backdoor CBDC. They're about to tokenize stocks, bonds, and equities, which is going to add CBDC level surveillance to everything else that you own. And then what's going on with AI surveillance and Palantir and this database of Americans in Operation Stargate? Again, this is advanced 5 years, frankly, under what it would have if the election had a different outcome, just because the technocrats control the Trump administration.
Yes, totally. I did a podcast yesterday with Daniel Estulin, who wrote the book, The Bilderbergs. So he is a big sort of anti-globalist. So many questions. SoftBank is always in the middle of shit that sounds bad to me. Tell me about SoftBank. It always seems it's like BCCI or something. What is SoftBank?
I remember dealing with SoftBank in the mid 90s. And so they've always taken this approach of taking really big outsized bets. And so the guy that runs it, his whole approach is he looks for entrepreneurs that are thinking way outside of the box, thinking multi-trillion-dollar industry.
Is it a bank?
Is it
this is not how bankers think. This is not a bank. This is a hedge fund, which you just described. Is it a bank? Is it
Oh
under
no!
restrictions of banks?
Oh no, it's not. It's a venture capital fund. I mean, when I dealt with, in fact, let's see. It's technically classified as a Japanese multinational conglomerate and investment holding company, but it's not a bank. It is.
So the name SoftBank is a total fraud.
Yes, if people think this is a commercial bank, if based on the name, people are thinking that this is.
I did until 2 seconds ago.
Me too.
Yep. So it was founded in 1981, and the guy who founded it, Mayoshi Son, still owns like 29%.
I think he's still running it. Isn't he?
He's still running it, and he controls 71% of the voting power. And the thing is, he's been hit or miss, but I remember his big claim to fame during the dot-com era was he was like the first investor or the biggest investor in Yahoo. So that was a massive win for him. And then they invested in Alibaba and a whole bunch of other companies. And so his whole thing is about, again, these moonshot investments. But he was also the big money behind, if you saw that, WeWork and that whole scam.
Yeah, oh my God, what a disaster that was. That guy's back in the saddle again, doing more shit.
Yep, he is. And so this is just this guy's approach. His approach is, let's look for these moonshots. And so now here he is with this investment fund putting money into Operation Stargate. And again, Trump's claiming that it's about U.S. AI dominance, and it's a Japanese investment firm. And then Larry Ellison, which is not. He's probably more closely aligned with Israel. If you actually, he's one of the donors. And then OpenAI, and then Palantir. I mean, this is insane. But MAGA will buy this. MAGA actually will wrap themselves in the flag and say, this is patriotic. Yeah, America's going to be number one in AI. And this is an absolute trap.
Well, did you see with SoftBank, divesting from NVIDIA to get themselves more deeply involved with OpenAI?
Well, I mean, it makes sense. If you think OpenAI is going to do much better, why would you hold? How much is NVIDIA going to grow from a $5 trillion market cap?
Well, which is, by the way, now bigger than the Nikkei, which is insanity, right? There will be chapters in textbooks. That'll be the Imperial Palace story of this era when NVIDIA got bigger than the Nikkei, and so I someone said it well. I think where everyone's looking at the individual players. Oracle, by the way, looks like some of their debt just got put on sell. Oracle looks like they may be the first to hit the bridge abutment in this story. This is why I actually think it's imminent. When Oracle's CDSs are soaring, it means that already capital is becoming an issue. And I was on this boom bust panel, and the whole focus was AI. And it was the focus. It was people mixing up the idea of AI itself going forward versus the financial bubble of AI. And one of the guys who supported it as not being a bubble, who is a technocratic optimist, after he finished some speech, I said, how is that not a bubble based on what you just said? Right? That is a massive bubble based on what you just said. I think the problem is that there's 7, 8, 10 big players, maybe. Would that be a round number estimate? Well, the real mega players, the mega players.
The thing is, you have to add China. So now,
which I can't even get my arm around, because who knows what China's doing.
I will say this, that it is eye-opening. China is leading the U.S. in 57 out of 64 technology categories. So people in the U.S. are completely clueless about what's going on in China. We still have this 1980s mentality, or what I had growing up, where it's like, well, you better finish your plate because there's starving kids in China. This whole outlook is, we're losing in robotics, we're losing in quantum computing. When Elon Musk bought Twitter, he said that he wanted to there's a video clip of him. He wanted to basically duplicate WeChat, which is the everything app in China that's actually tied to social credit systems. And so then I started looking at this. I'm like, wait, what if Elon Musk is ripping off China instead of the other way around? And it turns out when you start going through the categories of companies that he's invested in, there are counterparts in China that perhaps started earlier than he did. This is how distant our understanding is of what is going on in China. And by the way, it's not the Communist Chinese Party. These are corporations that are running this stuff. Like I mentioned, the SoftBank guy invested in Alibaba. Alibaba is one of the companies in China building these big competitive AI models. So I don't know who all of the players are, but again, they're global technocratic players. They're not governments. The governments are being weaponized by the corporations to whip up patriotism and to get the citizens involved into thinking that investing in, I actually think Oracle's too big to fail. I think it would get bailed out at this point based on the way that
I was going to ask you that question, actually. This is called, this goes by different names. Some call it mercantilism. Some call it state capitalism. Some call it fascism. Actually, when the corporations and the government sort of mind meld into one entity, which one could argue maybe it's always been that way, right? Maybe it's the delusion of a retail investor who thinks that at some point, but back at the turn of the century, when big business was buying off politicians, the government was something like 3% of the GDP. So they were paying politicians to get the hell out of the way. That was all they were doing. Now they're commandeering the wealth of the nation through government and siphoning it to themselves. And that's a fundamentally different situation.
So this is something that I talked about in a podcast, which is that I think Tito has much more political power, and he is playing 5D chess. In fact, he is a national chess champion. Like he's actually thinking multiple moves ahead and has been doing this for a long time. He's been heavily influenced by a guy named Curtis Yarvin. And when you read Curtis Yarvin,
that name keeps coming up.
You've got to look into this, because this ties into Project 2025 and everything that's been going on. A lot of the premise behind this that got people whipped up and excited about Doge and everything else was, we're going to, cut government. In fact, one of Yarvin's ideas was retire all government employees. And this is great. Libertarians like this, conservatives like this. It sounds great until you realize that the idea is to aggregate more power in the executive branch to essentially create a monarch, which is a bridge to technocracy. And I'm not even, these are not conspiracy theories. Yarvin has been going out and doing public debates on should America have a dictator, and he is actually taking the pro position. And the dictator that he's advocating for is not Donald Trump, it's J.D. Vance, who is a completely handpicked construct of Peter Thiel.
Yeah,
Can we talk about that for a few minutes? Because Aaron, I got so much shit from people, regular people that are like, "Oh, I love his energy, his story, his backstory,
his story was engineered.
I know, but people it's just people are so blissfully unaware of all this.
Here's the deal. One thing I know from watching our foreign policy is we don't like democracies. We tolerate some because they exist, but we don't like them at all because it's a lot easier to control one guy in a white suit with a cigar sticking out of his mouth than controlling the messy, ugly, gruesome effects of democracies. And so we don't in any way foster democracies globally. We like dealing with dictators.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and we'll engineer regime change just to pick a new dictator that's aligned with what our interests are.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you then, Aaron, do you think that Trump will finish out this term, or are they having a sense of urgency to want to put J.D. Vance in now, install?
I don't think they need a sense of urgency. In fact, the way I would frame what this last election was all about is, do you want technocracy with resistance or without resistance? And with Trump in there, they're able to push technocracy without resistance, because you have David Sachs, you have J.D. Vance, you have all these other people. There's nothing stopping this. Think about it. People a year ago were saying, well, we have to stop the globalists. What about Klaus Schwab? We need to, be concerned about Bill Gates and digital IDs and everything else. Now Trump's in, and we've implemented these things, and nobody's even talking about it. It went without any opposition whatsoever. I don't think they need to get him out, because he's a rubber stamp for everything, and he pacifies the MAGA audience, which will literally not question him at all. I mean, I put some tweets on Facebook, and there's some people that are, the thing about the 50-year mortgage. And so I put that up there, obviously making fun of the 50-year mortgage. And somebody's like, well, you're obviously poor and stupid. You don't know anything about economics. And then I put out the tweet. It's like, now Trump's trying to claim that he didn't know this was going to happen. And, the buck never stops with Trump, right? So he's trying to blame, it was another bad advisor making a bad piece, bad advice and bad recommendation. And these people will defend Trump no matter what. It doesn't matter. And the reason why I think is there's that Twain comment that says it's easier to fool someone than convince them that they've been fooled. And I think these Trump people have been fooled so many times that to admit that you've been fooled that many times, that's a huge barrier to actually have to admit that. And so now I think Trump gives great cover. So as long as his health can endure, I think he'll finish out the term.
I asked that because I saw his interview with Laura Ingraham the other day, and just some of the things he's saying, I'm like, oh my God, you hate your base.
Give me an example. Give me something to work with. I saw
the H1B comments of we don't have anybody here capable of building missiles. And Laura Ingram's we did before.
But this is something I've been worried about. So Trump, the idea of onshoring all these businesses, you have to have people to do them. And you say, well, we have people who can do those. I go, these people are not sitting around twiddling their thumbs. They're already employed. They're already doing jobs. And so if you said, look, we need to hire, minority X, you go, well, minority X participants who are talented are in the workforce already. The ones that are left over are not. So I think there's an argument that we can't you can't build big chip factories and chip making stuff here without people here who know how to make chips. I think that's a valid argument.
I mean, I get that, but when you go on when you go on national media saying, basically implying that we'd rather bring help in than train people in America. By the time these plants were to get up and running, it's just bad optics to say that, because
but he did say in the clip I saw, he did say they will train them. They will train Americans.
Well, now they're saying that. Scott Besson's saying that now. But
I saw Trump say it with Ingram.
Okay, I didn't see that part. But also he's gaslighting the economy, saying things are, this is the best economy.
No, that's bullshit. That's total bullshit.
But he was saying that too.
Right. So I know he always.
So it makes me wonder though. With that, are they getting ready to potentially, replace him with JD Vance? And that's where I was going with Aaron on that.
What do you think?
I think that it's possible that his health is actually genuinely that bad, and that might be on the horizon. But I don't think they're trying to push him out. But I think he genuinely may have health issues.
What do you think they are? What are the health issues? What do you think
I don't know. It might be with the swelling in the legs and everything else. He might some congestive heart issues or something. I mean, he's old. It's not like this.
Yeah, I know. He's not a spring chicken. Yeah, right.
He's not a spring chicken. He has poor diet and nutrition, and he's under a massive amount of stress. So it's not like this should be a surprise.
No, not a bit.
But I do think. I don't know. I don't know what prediction markets say. I think he'll probably finish out his term. If I had to guess, but what do I
know? Barring a total health problem, right?
So
I think so too. I don't think they'll take him out if that's what your question is. I think he, as Aaron says, I think he's doing everything they want.
So then my next question is with that is, okay, he finishes out the term. Next year with the midterms, not to make predictions or whatnot, because you're still going to have the other side trying to push their candidates through. How will Technocracy or how the tech bros respond to that to keep their agenda going? Because we know they're transactional, right? They're not ideologues.
No, but I mean, they've got Vance. I mean, again, Vance is, whether people like it or not, Vance is 100% a Peter Thiel construct. He met Thiel at Yale Law.
Which is ridiculous. Yeah. Nobody meets Peter Thiel in law school, right? No one gets pulled out of a law school and pulled into Peter Thiel's orbit like that.
What did they see in him, do you think, Aaron? Not to interrupt you, but what did they see in J.D. Vance that they were like, oh, this is somebody that we can create?
The ability to control a narrative. based on Vance's background, he's controllable, right? And so if you create a path for him, he made a deal with the devil, and he's more than willing and more than happy to do it. He's completely changed his views. He went out to Silicon Valley and was working with Peter Thiel, and then all of a sudden comes back to Ohio and changes all of his political positions so that he can win the seat. He's entirely malleable, but when you dig into it and you start analyzing the investments that he has an investment portfolio of technocratic companies that are involved in genetics, robotics, the whole 9 yards. I'll do a whole reveal on this. I just launched something called the Technocracy Atlas, by the way, technocracyatlas.com, which is a free site that's a chatbot that has all of the information from Patrick Wood and all of these other sources. And we're going to build a graph database where you're going to be able to track all of the connections, all of the financial investments and everything else with people within this technocratic realm. And part of this process has been, I've been talking to other people that have been looking into various pieces of this. It's like, all right, I know one guy that's, analyzed his investment portfolio and everything else. I'm like, we need open source tools to be able to visualize this and allow other people to see it.
I'm just letting the NSA track it for me. So,
well, they're tracking it. Yeah.
Darth Powell today posted something that he didn't create, but all of a sudden it hit me like a truck. And it actually showed a picture of a guy, and it says 50-year mortgages, you will own nothing and you will be happy. And I'm going, oh my God. I hadn't made that connection. I had made the connection that a 50-year mortgage is a rental. That's trivial, right? The longer the mortgage, the more it's just a rental.
I put out a meme about that yesterday, and it's one I had Ben Franklin, and I did an animated thing using X's new video thing, and it said a 50-year mortgage and $2,000 worth of UBI if you can keep it. But basically the $2,000 thing is you can look at it as a UBI. I just saw that Treasury Secretary said they're now going to offer it only to people that make less than $100,000 a year. This is getting people ready for UBI. And the 50-year mortgage is absolutely, you will own nothing. That is, again, technocracy has just massively accelerated under it, and there's no opposition to it. The MAGA people will not go against this. Their view is anything that Trump says must be brilliant, and it must be 5D chess. It doesn't even matter if he contradicts himself. If he contradicts himself from one day to another, that's fine. We're not going to hold him to any standard. It must have been bad advice he got from somebody. It was the deep state. It was a deep state attack, whatever it happens to be. There is no friction. There's nothing stopping technocracy right now. Zero.
I don't think Trump can. I don't even think the problem I'm having is I don't think Trump has the power to stop it no matter where his heart is. I don't think he has that kind of power. And so I'm sort of a Trump adjacent. When the first month in power, it was exciting, right? He was doing things that I liked. And I've been relatively tolerant of his. So Trump's a bullshitter. Biden was a liar, right? Biden would just make shit up. Trump would just exaggerate. But Trump caught the biggest fish of the day, that sort of thing. I'm getting increasingly concerned that what you describe is correct. I'm still open-minded to the idea that what we're seeing is Trump negotiating a very tricky minefield and trying to get wins where he can. And the problem is there's so few now. There are so few wins. Like, for example, when he indicts Comey, that means nothing. Comey's going to be, stuck in the court system until Trump's out of office. Then the whole thing's just going to go away. It's all bullshit. Kash Patel. How about that? Kash Patel suing someone for saying his wife is an Israeli agent, right?
It's not even his wife. It's his girlfriend. It's not even his wife.
Or his girlfriend or whatever. And I look at her and I go, she's hot. And she looks like that she'd be exactly what Mossad would create to put on Patel. I mean, she looks like a good choice. I may back away from this whole debate world because it's getting gruesome to me. I know that there's people who say, well, that's a pussy thing to do, but I've got 15 years left and I don't want to spend it fighting everybody. I do not want to burn, and I don't know what I want to do. But it's ugly out there. And every day every goddamn day I come across some video of Levin or Cruz or Victor Davis Hanson talking about me, and I've just had enough. I've just and there's people who put up with it, but I'm saying, look, I got 15 years left. I don't.
15 years what, on the Earth? On the Earth? What is your?
Yeah, on the Earth.
Does your birth certificate have an expiration date? How do you know it's 15 years?
If I get to 85, right? I consider it lucky if I get to 85.
You know what? It depends. Your age will be determined by what Oracle and Palantir define it as being. So, I'm not kidding. I've done a deep dive on this. They are building systems and credit scores and health scores for doing predictive modeling and for determining who gets what care. United Healthcare and Cigna have been implementing AI recently. United Healthcare is being sued because
they'll put me out to pasture then, is what you're saying.
Well, they'll put a lot of us out to pasture for a whole variety of different reasons. But I'm not exaggerating when I say that they're designing these systems. When you
I don't think so at all.
Aaron, finish your thought on the United Healthcare. What are they doing?
United Healthcare is using AI, as Cigna and others are, for claims processing now. And they're in a lawsuit where it's alleged that for their Medicare Advantage program, they are denying 90% of claims. And guess what happens when you're denied and you appeal? Your appeal goes to the AI. So this is a situation that's going on right now. And by the way, this is happening now in the speed of 0.2 seconds. That's how long it takes for the AI to spit back the denial. But here's the more worrisome part. And by the way, this is something that I've said that a lot of people are pissed off about, and I don't care because it's 100% true. You can either have MAHA or you can have medical freedom, but you cannot have both. It turns out MAHA is nothing but a platform for pushing a technocratic agenda. It's not even just Kennedy talking about wearables. When you look at what they're doing with this health data behind the scenes, it's utterly horrifying. And to connect the dots here.
Is Kennedy in on it, or is he being duped?
He's absolutely in on it.
Okay.
I'm so sick of the white knight. Look, at this point, by the way, what difference does it make? But
it does make a difference. I would like to think there's someone out there who's not a bad person.
It's not a superhero movie. I'm sorry, Aaron. Let me just. Everybody keeps thinking this is a superhero movie, and I'll say it over and over and over again. I get the messages from people. This is not a football game. It's not the fourth quarter, and these are not the Avengers. Aaron, please. Go ahead.
But that's what everybody thinks. I remember the propaganda about it. Oh, we've got the dream team. We've got Vivek. We've got Tulsi Gabbard. We've got RFK. These people are going to save Western civilization. It was all bullshit. But RFK, here's the problem with RFK. RFK actually thinks it's the role of government to make people healthy. This is the thing that's missing about all of this. And by the way, that is not compatible with medical freedom. Medical freedom is I get to decide what I do with my body, not a new group of Avengers comes in and now they've got the right playbook to make everybody healthy. That's why I say you can't have MAHA and medical freedom, because it's an actual approach to how healthcare fundamentally works. I'm seeing nothing medical freedom out of Kennedy or the administration.
So the minute he got into power and he went after Fruit Loops, right? I mean, that was a warning shot right there. The minute he got into power and he starts going after dye colors and stuff like that, that was a warning. I think the pharmaceutical industry is a serious problem. And if he had stayed on the path of saying, look, you guys have to do a better job, the FDA has to, but there are certain things you need to know. I can't evaluate the efficacy and the toxicity of a drug myself. I just can't do it. So there's times where some sort of organization is helpful. There could be a private sector version. So for example, here's the thing. I saw a guy get interviewed the other day about SSRIs. It was a doctor, and he talked about the horror of SSRIs, and I think they're really bad. Someone I know well is on a related drug called Effexor, and you go on Twitter and you search Effexor, and it's nothing but bad news. Nothing but bad news. And I think we do need. I don't think we need to be completely, anarcho-libertarian. I think there's things you can ask government to do. You should minimize it. You should Ron Paul it, if you want to say.
Well, I'll say this. So I'm not engaging these debates. I'm building solutions. We're launching something at the end of this month, which is a worldwide medical tourism marketplace. Our healthcare system is beyond fixing. It turns out you can get medical procedures overseas at 80% the cost with with better healthcare outcomes. And I'm not talking about
80% is an overestimate. My son broke his foot in Vietnam, got it casted, went to a hospital in Ho Chi Minh City, got an MRI, got pins put in it, was in the hospital for a couple days, $1,200.
Yep. Yeah. No, this website will actually show, and there's these centers in places like Turkey and Thailand and everything else where when you actually see the care that's being delivered, it's like the difference between living in the Jetsons and the Flintstones, which is essentially what we have here. And we're talking about complex heart surgery. We're talking about cancer treatment. We're not talking about just cosmetic procedures. It's now a $100 billion a year industry. So we're putting this site together to help promote. There's a place in Mexico called Molar City, where I think that there are something like 500 dentists in a town, or 350 dentists in a town of 5,000 people.
Molar City.
And so when the site comes out, I mean, obviously I'll share it, but it's just fascinating what's going on globally with respect to healthcare. So I think that, we need to be taking the approach of, we're in charge of our own health, not our doctor, not the government, and truly open this up to market pressure. That's where I'm spending time. But I'm not seeing.
Well, I think that makes sense to me. So if you can find out where the healthcare is good and where it is fairly priced, then that's a real plus. Well, I get that.
Well, also though too, and this is where I was trying to temper people's expectations in regards to Kennedy, because look at how many people in this country are dependent on pharmaceuticals, whether it be antidepressants, Ozempic, Adderall, on and on and on and on and on. And, the pharmaceutical, they're not going to let you, it's a cartel. They're not going to let Kennedy come in and take that money away.
I don't know if you saw this. I shared this picture, and I call it the most American picture of where we are right now. And it's that picture of the press conference where it's RFK's there, Dr. Oz is there, Trump is there, and they're talking about how Medicare is now going to pay for Ozempic. And then the CEO of the company, Novo Nordisk, I believe, has a heart attack. RFK exits the room immediately and bolts. And then Trump is standing there looking like he has his dick in his hands.
I have to take this just a second. You guys go up.
Yeah. That picture to me is the exact summation of everything that's going on right now. And before we hopped on here, there's some HHS has a live interview Q&A going on between RFK and JD Vance. And I just scrolled through some of it, and all I heard was obesity problem and talking about Ozempic. Now, let me ask you something. Before the election, RFK was talking negatively about Ozempic. The idea that we're now using Medicare to pay for Ozempic, and he's on the stage with JD Vance talking about this, is that anyone's understanding of what MAHA was supposed to be about, or what medical freedom was supposed to be about?
Yeah, I mean, you and I are on the same page with all this. I mean, because I didn't have expectations any of this was going to change. And the other thing with that was, Dave, I muted you, so unmute yourself whenever you're ready to go back. Are you good? You there?
Yep.
Oh, okay. But people had the expectations that things were going to change from that, and I kind of lost my train of thought here for a second. But yeah, I didn't see that with any of this.
No, I mean, and again, so then you have a lot of people that were like, okay, well, we need to focus on COVID and the COVID vaccine. And so now it's not mandatory, and now it's, maybe it's off the recommended list, but the United States government pays for 47% of all of the healthcare in the United States at this point. At one point, it was over 50% during the COVID period. So we're still buying these vaccines. And then Trump does the big, whatever it was, $70 billion announcement with Pfizer, and then talks about Trump RX. I mean, what a rug pull.
You bring up a good point. So, and both of you guys chime in on this and tell me what you think. Was the virus, and you know what I'm talking about, but was it a test to see how much people will bend the knee and comply? Because they were able to, all these things, UBI, that was rolled out during that time where they put those $600 deposits in your bank accounts. People just complied. Even if it was unconstitutional and illegal, people just went along with it. And to me, I look at it as like it was a big win for them. People will say, no, they pushed back, red states pushed back, fought back, and got things reversed. I think they accomplished exactly what they needed to accomplish, and now they know what they can get away with.
Complete victory. It was a complete victory for the technocrats, and it was just one element of a longer strategy. I mean, look at what happened. Look at the CARES Act and everything that we got from that. I mean, we eliminated the fractional reserve requirement for banking. We added things like contact tracing. It was a massive win across the board for the surveillance state. Now, going back to Palantir, when you dig into this AI, did you know that Palantir was used with the CDC and the NIH in the rollout of Operation Warp Speed? Palantir is already embedded in public health. So normally when people think about Palantir, they think about it in the context of the CIA with respect to military operations.
When did Palantir start? When? What's your knowledge of the beginning of Palantir?
I was a while. I think it was more. Let me see. I think it was more than 8 years ago. Let me see.
So I was just listening to someone I know talk about Palantir and doing military stuff in '96.
Founded in 03. Founded in 03.
03.
Yeah, this guy was talking about how he was in the military. So I was talking to the guy sitting in a bar, and he said our guys were using Palantir software in the military in '96.
Wow. Oh, that's news.
Yeah, that was news to me. But I thought, well, maybe everyone but me knows this, so that there's that. There's a question I've been laboring over. Clearly, everything to do with the virus and the vaccine and everything is just a total load of crap. I'm in the group, which I haven't been to lately because I haven't seen the topics I want to go to, but the Doctors for COVID Ethics, where we just twice a week brought people through, and anyone, lawyers, doctors, NSA guys, you name it, And the question I keep asking is, did they overplay their hand, or did they do it just right? Now, the overplay the hand would be, so for example, if I wanted to do the nefarious things they did, but have us not get mad at them, I would have backed off and said pregnant women don't have to take the vaccine. If you got the antibodies, you don't have to take the vaccine. There were certain things they could have backed off on and not tip their hands so garishly to the populace to figure out that we all got totally screwed. Now, the alternative model is they did that, and they're basically saying there's nothing you can do about it. We're coming. It's like when Larry Bird would tell his defender, "Look, I'm gonna break to the right, do it, pull up jump shot, and you can't stop me." He would trash talk him. What do you think it is?
So I think, because I know a lot of people that are in there now, and they believe in this cult of Bobby, and they think that we're exposing everything that happened with COVID. And so what's actually happened? So now people are trying to go after Fauci as if Fauci was the problem, because it wasn't a systemic problem with public health. But when you look at it, they completely got away with it, because I'm going to go back to Palantir. Palantir was involved with and was given a lot of credit when you dig into it for the, quote, success of the efficiency of Operation Warp Speed. So has Palantir grown in stature and influence, or has it receded? No one is even challenging.
That's a rhetorical question, right?
No one's even. Yes. So now they already have the CDC information. They have the information for COVID testing and everything else. And now Trump has authorized them. Now we're marrying this with IRS data and other data. And then Palantir, the level to which Palantir is involved in healthcare. And I'm bringing this up just because I was even surprised by it, and I thought I followed this stuff. Did you know that Palantir has a contract to build out an entire database of all of the people in the NHS in the UK? 330 million pound contract. They're building that out. And now they're down at the level of, they have a program for startups. If you are a wearable company or a healthcare startup company, you can get free access to the Palantir analytics platform in exchange for your de-anonymized data.
Well, I assume they got the DNA of the entire globe.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. So, but Palantir's not the enemy, right? I mean, it may be Michael Burry may think it's the enemy, and him putting the downward Palantir is I hate Palantir, but they're safe in terms of what's going on with these government contracts. They just happen to be the real enemy that we should be focusing our attention on, and we're not. So I think the technocrats won in a phenomenal way that I didn't understand and couldn't have predicted, because right now, as I'll say it again, there is no friction and there is no opposition to the expansion of technocracy. And then here's another one. People will try to say, well, the WEF lost because Klaus Schwab is gone. Klaus Schwab was replaced by Larry Fink. If you think Larry Fink is less effective at pushing technocracy than Klaus Schwab, I think you're probably not looking at this properly.
Klaus Schwab was a cartoon character, right? I mean, he really
old.
was.
He's old.
No, but they didn't even try to make him look credible, right? He was a made for TV movie character, right? He dressed like he was on Star Trek. He was fake from head to toe.
George Soros, everyone keeps saying George Soros. He's 95 years old, and I've said this a million times. And until hopefully I start hearing Soros, his name, he's 95 years old. Everyone wants to turn their attention on, but this what Aaron is talking about to me is more relevant to what's really going on, behind the scenes. Now, here's a question that I have then. Is the Michael Burry release of the shorting that he did, the timing of that, do you find that interesting at all, or does anything stand out to you on that?
I have no idea. I don't really have.
Yeah. There's people who claim that he made a phenomenal call in 07, 08, 09. But otherwise has been less brilliant, although I think he's actually pretty sharp. I think he's, that on the spectrum brain of his is pretty sharp, I think. Does he have information? Is that your question?
Just the timing of this information coming out all of a sudden, because you're seeing the stock of Palantir, it's been continuing to drop. I didn't look today, but it's dropped and dropped. And Alex Karp was doing his media tour and appeared all kind of frantic about Michael Burry and.
Well, I think the funny thing about the timing is that Karp had just done a press conference doing a victory lap talking about how he crushed all the short sellers, and then either that day or the next day, Burry comes out with the short. That I find to be that to be entertaining. I don't know if there's any particular information that Burry has about it, but again, I don't invest in public stocks at all. I don't believe in the integrity of the market, so this is why I'm not spending a lot of cycles trying to figure out how to even do the analysis. But I wouldn't bet against Palantir if I put my money in the market, just because of how it's become a systemically important part of the technocratic digital prison infrastructure globally.
And then the fact that Sam Altman also, he asked the Fed to do a backstop on the data centers.
Yep.
Again, I can taste vomit when he says that. When Jensen Huang said China's going to win, which he might be right, but he's saying, therefore, give Sam all the money he needs to buy my chips, right? So, and now we have to look at the face of what his niece or aunt or something at AMD. We get to see her picture left and right all over the place, and there may be an indicator here that's telling us something's going on under the surface. And that might be gold. Gold might be sending a flag up the pole saying there's trouble in River City, because it continues to climb, and that may be a barometer of trouble.
What do you think, Aaron? Were you going to respond to that, or?
No, I mean, again, it's hard for me to say, why. I mean, there are a lot of people that want to short Palantir, but I don't comment on the equity markets because I have no idea how to predict. In my opinion, the market should have crashed a long time ago, and
like 10 years.
Yeah, so it's propped up by so much propaganda that I stopped trying to figure out how to estimate when people's knowledge gap of what's actually going on is going to get closer to where they are, and I'm never wrong. Or, I'm never right on that, so I don't even hazard a guess at this point.
Well, because where I'm going with this now is, our friend Matt Smith, Dave and I wrote an article about the fake Civil War. He put it on Substack, and I'm paraphrasing here. probably butchering it, screwing it up a little bit, but just talking about how, they need people to buy into the idea of some potential civil war, CBDC. It's for the safety. It's for your safety. Similar to what happened during the pandemic, right? It's for your safety. It's for your benefit. It's your benefit. And it feels like they're moving us into that direction, and quickly, I think, as they go through this global monetary reset and the instruments get put into place in regards to the CBDC. Do any of you guys sense that? And I encourage everyone to follow my friend Matt Smith and look up the article that he just posted on Substack yesterday to read it. But do you feel that?
I don't know. I've been making a list. I think the world actually, the fourth turning model it gets interpreted too literally, but I think it's not a bad model. A couple of my friends were doing a podcast, and they were talking about how in the fourth turning, institutions that built up over the previous essentially lifetime of the first three turnings get torn down. So so basically whatever has appeared since World War II is at risk of being torn down. It could be dollar reserve currency. It could be fiat currencies in total. It could be globalism, NATO, WEF, you name it. It could be academia. There's all sorts of candidates for institutions that will be shredded in the chaos that seems like it's coming our way. Someone said, a friend of mine said, the grid, right? The grid is a great example of something that could get shredded, and all we need is an EMP, and boom, we're done. We're mass starvation. One EMP, and we have mass starvation. And our opponents have the technology to drop that EMP. And so if China wanted to destroy the United States and really turn it into just Gaza 2.0, an EMP would do it. So I've been trying to figure out what is at risk of going south in this, say, the next decade. And there's a long list of candidates.
Yeah, the China front, I don't worry about that as much. I worry more so about what they're doing right now is this global monetary reset, and then how all these people, the Palantirs and the Open AIs, and are playing a part in this reset. That to me is the biggest concern.
So looked at through a technocratic lens, again, my view on all of this is nation states are irrelevant, civil wars are irrelevant. This is all jockeying for control of a global system. And the global currency coming out of the system is an energy credit based system. I mean, this is literally the playbook and the design. And by the way, Elon Musk said as much 4 or 5 days ago. He said, well, we're probably going to replace currency with something that's based on wattage. I cannot stress enough that Elon Musk is a technocrat. His grandfather was the head of the Technocracy party. He has stated that he is for an energy credit-based currency. He has stated he's for UBI, which he said is not going to be universal basic income. It's going to be universal abundant super wealth income. He is for all of the stuff that is the fundamental building blocks of technocracy. So the thing is, we're at a point right now, people talk about, well, the media is crumbling. And then they have this false illusion that we actually have free media now because, Elon bought Twitter and now we have free speech. We have what's worse than free speech. We have the illusion of free speech, which is completely manipulated and controlled by algorithms. And when you look at what's going on with this, 70% of the traffic is still fake. But then on top of that, there are multiple layers to this. They employ psychologists to figure out how to, design algorithms to manipulate our dopamine systems. So much of what we see is rage baiting, but as determined by the people putting together the algorithms. Well, who's putting together the algorithms? These are all run by technocrats. Musk is a technocrat. That's X. Rumble has his big investors, JD Vance, Tether, and Howard Lutnick, and everything else. You start looking at these so-called free speech platforms, and then you find out they're completely controlled. And what isn't completely fake or algorithmically controlled is pay to play. And so we're in a situation right now where the whole Civil War thing and a lot of these divisions, I quoted yesterday, I'm like, I'm so sick. I don't want to hear Nick Fuentes debate Who's it that he's supposed to debate?
Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro? Who gives a shit? None of this matters. So if you watch that debate, what information are you going to get out of it? What are you going to do tomorrow to improve your personal, well-being and to improve your ability to thrive out of the chaos that we have? All of it is a distraction. And I think even the debates now, it's now the whole thing, kind of like the reason you want to exit, well, I think for good reason, is that people aren't thinking for themselves. It's now I'm going to tune in and passively watch two different people that have taken one particular ideological position that people resonate with, but don't want to think critically about. And now that's the drama. Now it's about the influencers themselves. Now it's about Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. Nobody's really talking about ideas because the algorithms don't reward the debate of ideas.
I agree. In fact, I would say it was 7 or 8 months ago, I was watching influencers fight each other, and it sort of toxic levels where Candace and Fuentes and Tucker and you name it, and actually at one point Mike Green and Cliff Asness and I said to myself, don't let that happen to you. And then I got sucked in, and I haven't participated in the rage debate, but I'm getting attacked to try to participate in the rage debate. And I feel like a wimp, but I want to walk away from it, not fight the good fight. And I'm not 100% sure whether that's the right move. It's probably the right move for me. At a selfish level, it's very much probably the right move. But I'm torn. I'm at a fork in the road for me.
But are you fighting the good fight, or are you just adding fuel to the?
Well, that's the question. That's the question. That is the question. And Mike's kind of witnessed this because we've been doing podcasts for a number of years now. How many have we done, Mike? Probably at least a dozen.
3 or 4, maybe 2. Yeah,
3 or 4. My ass, right? You fucker. Let's do a rage debate right here. And it's he can see me shifting. He can see me moving around. And I don't want to contribute to the rage. And I also, however, get mad, and there's a guy named Chaz something who's been posting feeds about this, about how the algos are sucking us all in, and he's probably part of the problem, right? There's so many dimensions to this story that it's an infinite loop. You're like on an Escher diagram or something.
Well, that was the other thing that Matt had talked about in his article, with the Civil War, because the idea of, and we saw this during the pandemic, people got more comfortable in internet world than they did in the real world. And, you experience this anger and you experience this rage, reading things, being attacked, but then you go outside, you put your phone down, you walk outside and you hear the birds chirping and the sky's blue and it's not falling. And, this is all by design. And that's like, to what Aaron's point is, the algos, they want the drama is what they push. And then any type of, viable solutions on the ground level, they don't want that information getting out.
But here's the problem. There are many, many, many chapters in history where the sky does fall. And that is, if you're sitting in Ukraine right now, you're in a shitstorm. If you're in the Gaza Strip, you're in a shitstorm. If you're there are places in the world, and so I like to envision what it would be like to be sort of, say, a German Jew in 1935, sitting around the kitchen table having these debates, and I'm sure some said this will pass, and others said we got to get the hell out. I know it wasn't easy to get out. I understand that. But there are times where knowing what's going on turns out to be a life or death situation.
I'm not saying to be blissfully unaware. What I'm saying is, though, to recognize the fact that when you're getting sucked into a shitstorm, rather than to get sucked in, to just back away and go outside. And I'm not saying just go outside every time.
Work on your chipping.
Right. I'm not saying and like this is all by design, right? And that's what again during the pandemic they were programming us to get more comfortable in the internet world rather than out in society. So yeah, I'm not saying
Right.
become blissfully unaware, but also recognizing the drama and getting sucked into all this and the anger and the emotions, and this is all by design. And that's
So
to what Aaron
here's
was
one of
just
the problems
saying.
with here's one of the problems with AI though. The AI, the part that scares me is that it's really allowing people to bypass thinking. And so I was going to teach a freshman writing seminar, which they have all these different topics. One thing you're supposed to do is learn how to write, and it was going to be on personal finance. And I was just going to put together a course that basically, which it's taken by freshmen, which is about personal finance. I thought you talk about, how much it really costs to own a car, how much it really costs to own a house, how much, what is inflation? What does it mean? That sort of thing. And I don't know what I would have talked about. I would have put it together. And then ChatGPT got released. And I said, I'm not doing it because I'm not going to grade a bunch of papers written by a computer. Now, the problem is in my 45 years of being a scientist, writing is the critical part of understanding. A project isn't done just because you've done the last experiment. It's done when you've written the paper and you've pieced it together and you've made a coherent story that doesn't have logical flaws in it. You say, I've done all the experiments I now need to do. These kids are now in a world where they can get someone else to do their homework for them. And if we don't adjust, if we don't find a way to maintain thought, we are going to pay an unbelievable price.
Yeah, I mean, again, to me, this is all about are we the remote person controlling the remote controller of the TV, and this is where I've been spending a lot of time, as is Mike Adams, customizing these things. It's kind of like you curate your own library. Right? You pick which books you're going to read, you read those books. And now it's at the point where you can actually build your own data sets that you feed into the AI. Now, what's interesting is he's launching something called Brighteon Books, where it's actually going to create customized books for people on various topics. You literally will type in a prompt and it will create a book of whatever the specified length is. And he's created a system with like a petabyte of information of primary source material where he actually checks line by line, fact checks line by line. It's not using ChatGPT. It's not using whatever they train the internet on, which is, by the way, junk, things like Reddit. He's actually amassed all of the information to produce books. You're right that there is this there. And now, what is the right level of critical thinking where somebody can actually use these AI tools productively versus passively? I don't know what the answer is to that. I think we should be looking at that, though, as the question as to how can we.
That is the question.
And I have no idea. And by the way, I think the dividing line here is going to be so huge because I can tell you my productivity is, I'm not even kidding, up 100x. And what I've seen happen with AI in just in the last 90 days, I'm going to tell you something that I built just this morning. I built something that takes all of my genomic information. Unfortunately, I signed up for 23andMe a long time ago. That was a mistake, but it is what it is. I downloaded all of genomic information, put it into my computer, wrote a program that then uses Mike Adams AI to analyze my specific genome.
Now, Mike Adams is Health Ranger, is that correct?
Is Health Ranger.
Okay.
And to tell me what my specific. So imagine being able to get a news report on your health that's actually tied to what your specific genetic variants are. That's what I've been able to build this morning, as a side project while I was working on two other things. That's what's possible with this on the positive side. What we should be worried about, though, is the centralized version of this, where we're relying on not only the data that ChatGPT and Palantir and so forth used, but then they put an additional screen on top of that as to how the data is output. So there's a double whammy here. The input is bad, and then the output is screened and manipulated. And unfortunately, that's the dominant view. It's kind of like, again, we talk about CBDCs versus privacy coins, et cetera. So
you have the advantage, though, of working with AI using a brain that has long since been taught to think.
Yep, you're right. And that's why I go back to the question of how do we teach people how to think, and what is that? I don't know. That is the question. I don't know how to do that. And you see it. I mean, you're right. I saw that they're going to change the SAT because and shorten the reading section because people don't know how to read long paragraphs or long sections anymore. They're actually starting to cut that part out.
I've even heard that the kids, so your brain, there's a thing called neuroplasticity where your brain corrects itself and rewires itself. It's a really interesting area. And the kids are neuroplastically changing their brain chemistry in a very big way. It's not just the dopamine serotonin thing, but they're actually rewiring it. Their peripheral vision is shrinking. Their peripheral vision is getting narrower because they're spending so much time focusing on a phone, right? And we're not ready for that. Now, the other thing we're not ready for is the rate of change. So, as someone said, the human body, the humans have a capacity for some big changes, but not in rapid fire. And in rapid fire, we kind of shut down. It's sort of like it's like pain gets shut down when it's too great and it becomes debilitating, right? So you go into shock, and that allows you to function under what would be excruciating pain, because your brain has this way of saying, forget the whole pain mechanism, it's not working. We got to get the job done here, right? I just worry that we're not ready for what is coming our way, and we're not ready biochemically for what's coming our way.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I'm gonna I'll put on my red glasses, my blue blocker glasses. To that point, I think you're absolutely right that in many respects, and now some of it is the way, and again, the way the technology is being weaponized. You look at TikTok and Instagram and everything else. These are dopamine hits. These things are having a direct impact, but even being surrounded by blue light all the time, blue light has an impact on your insulin levels. It has an impact on your dopamine system itself. I have to wear these. I usually wear these when I do my podcast at night, but it's getting to the point where I'm surrounded by monitors. I'm surrounded by lights to do this podcast. That has a huge effect on top of it all. And we don't know what the impact of all of this is. And we have a situation. I keep on seeing these reports about, people having massive issues with brain fog, with attention, with memory. And by the way, that may not have anything to do with the technology. This may be related to, other drugs or, certain other, vaccines or whatever it happens to be. There are a lot of reasons why that might be the case. But, and when in talking to Mike Adams, he's always there with his, shake with, turmeric or whatever it happens to be in it. We've talked a lot about how we need to focus on our physical health and our cognitive health, even as we're using these tools. So yeah, there are a lot of risk factors. I'm not saying that it's all great. In fact, the base case scenario here is technocracy, which is the complete and total end of free will. Because when you play this out, what you end up with is, you end up with the energy credit system and everything else, but you have, originally it was technocrats. It was scientists and engineers making decisions for people. That is now going to be replaced by AI. So what we saw with United Healthcare and their claim system, this is going to be for everything. So the decisions that you are allowed to make in your life will be determined algorithmically by AI. And the AI systems that are leading the pack are AI systems, created by companies like OpenAI and X. This is not.
Yeah, I just don't see how this is a win.
So that's not a win, but the resistance point to it is to do what Mike Adams is doing and what I'm doing is to start building these decentralized tools. Mike made his AI available so that you can download it on your computer for free and you don't even have to be connected to the internet to use it. And it's trained on all of this data. So we have to start thinking about this not in terms of survival or fear. We need to out-innovate our way through it through innovation and decentralization. That to me is the mindset moving forward. This is why I don't want to get involved in a lot of these. I don't want to get involved in any of these debates either. The Nick Fuentes, Ben Shapiro thing is there to divide us while the AI surveillance state expands, because yet it's another division, another thing for people to argue about. And either way, either of their positions is going to involve increasing the surveillance state. They'll both end up agreeing that we need digital ID for voter integrity or something, right? All of the debates that are getting all of the attention, guess what the end conclusion of it is? More technocracy, more surveillance, more control, people that are angry, whose dopamine has been manipulated. Now we have a frenetic society of people that are pissed off at each other with a whole series of different micro civil wars across a whole bunch of different dimensions. And all the while Palantir expands, Oracle expands, and then we get that much closer to a complete digital prison. That's how I view it. But the answer out of that, though, is, I mean, the AI is inevitable, but the thing is, the technocrats will fight themselves. They're aligned in what the end goal is, but they're not aligned in who's going to control it. And that is the leverage point that we have. This is why I love what China's doing, which is they're releasing their AI models as open source models that you can download on your computer. They're doing this because that's their strategy for, trying to get the centralized closed source US models to run into financial issues, because people are going to look at this and say, well, why should I invest $2 trillion in open AI when China just released something for free that you can download on your own computer? And so, great, let these psychopaths fight amongst themselves. And then,
so in that sense, they're price undercutting us yet again.
They're undercutting in a massive way. There's this new model, Kimi K2 thinking, that is like it's an amazing model. And it used to be they were saying that China was 90 days or 180 days behind us in terms of AI. I think that they just reached parity.
That's such a short period of time. That's
well,
like running a marathon and to say, well, the guy's 2 seconds behind you, right? It's really nothing.
But they've actually just caught up. And so this is, on my podcast. In my podcast, I actually show people, because I'm starting to try to show people, instead of being afraid of this, look at what's going on. So every week you get to see kind of, here's the advance in what's going on with video and AI and what you can do with search and everything. And it's breathtaking in the last 90 days, what has happened.
You're not succeeding. You're just scaring us.
but it should, I'm trying to not scare. So on the podcast,
I know.
It's like this thing where, if okay, now I have imagine, now of course my original problem was using 23andMe, but let's say you could do genetic testing. I could go on a whole launch about
They can get your DNA if they want it, period. That's not even debatable, because everyone gets blood tests done. If someone wants your DNA, they're going to go straight to LabCorp or something and say, get a DNA sample from all the tests that are done.
And they can do that under HIPAA, because government is a covered entity, so they can actually take your question.
Right. So if they want all our DNA, they can get it. Doesn't matter if you went to 23andMe or not.
So the point is, we can either say, oh, I'm afraid of this and I'm not going to deal with it, or we can figure out how to use tools where we can analyze our own information and make our own decisions. And I want to show people that side of it, because I learned some things just taking my maternal DNA and throwing it into Mike Adams AI. And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't realize this. I've got a problem. My wife has been pushing me to do this for a long time, and she was right. But, I have an issue with vitamin D and a whole variety of different things. And, I've got this MTHFR thing and all this other stuff. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. So now there's a short list of supplements. I have to change this in my diet. And, no pharmaceuticals are necessary for this, but this is now information that I have in my own possession that I can, query on my own computer. That's empowering.
So here's someplace I think medicine is going to find its way to get there, maybe against its will, but I think it will. And that is that we have something like 100,000 retroviruses in us, which is why, at some level, why the AIDS virus was, A, shock, and B, who knows what the hell it actually was. And then we've got all these microbes and stuff. And so we keep treating humans as an organism when I think we should be treating us as like the Great Barrier Reef. And we should be treating us like an ecosystem and trying to understand it using this sort of complexity theory of an ecosystem. And that's where AI could become really important, because that's not something that a doctor can do, right? That's not going to happen at all, period, from a doc.
Exactly. And, and what the AI can do is take a bunch of data, and you can just have it draw connections. Don't even prejudge what you think it is. Don't even say, hey, I want to look for this or this or this. Give it the data and say, hey, come up with some insights based on this data. That's really
right.
There's a lot of power in it. Of course, the insights could be wrong, and this is where we get into which models are you using and how are they censored and so forth. It's kind of like when 23andMe, they used to report on the BRCA gene and the potential link to breast cancer or whatever, and then all of a sudden they were told they couldn't report on that anymore because people were going out and getting, mastectomies. They were using preventative healthcare in a way that was actually increasing the cost to the healthcare system. So 23andMe was forced to no longer report on that information in that way. Classic, scenario here. And who knows how much more data? Well, we'll find out. Now I have the raw data. I'm not subject to whatever screens the FDA or others have put on 23andMe in terms of how you analyze it and what.
Well, who bought that database? Someone bought that database.
Yeah, the woman who started the company found a group of investors and bought it back.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
that's sort of like, this reminds me of the Beatles having to bid against Michael Jackson for the rights to the Beatles songs.
Yep. Yeah, no.
And the reason it was hard for the Beatles is because they were buying them to not use them, and Michael Jackson was buying them to use them, and so he had profit motive on his side.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Yes, it was an interesting story what happened there, but again, this is to me how we can fight back are things like this by coming up with these decentralized tools, making those tools easy for people to use, as opposed to sitting around and waiting. And people are so resigned now to, I guess the technocracy is going to be here, but it's better that it's Peter Thiel than Bill Gates, and so now people are even picking a side on that, right?
Oh, there's an interesting thing that came up. Bill Gates, matter-of-factly. This will get to another big topic. Bill Gates matter-of-factly said, well, first of all, a couple of months ago, he matter-of-factly said that COVID wasn't what we thought it was. It wasn't that lethal. And I'm going, oh, thank you for telling us now, bud. He about a week ago came out and said that climate change is not the crisis we think it is.
Nope.
Now, Bill Gates is not just uttering shit as it comes into his head the way I do on Twitter, right? Where I'll put out a tweet. It's just a passing thought that may be good, may be bad, but I'll put it out there. That to me strikes me as he is the shot across the bow that narrative is now going to change.
Well, the narrative needs to change because you can't.
I know it does. It's crap, but
it's crap. But you can't go out and claim that you have to build all of these data centers while simultaneously claiming that.
That's exactly right. So now, they're going, holy shit, we can't go burning all this energy and claim climate change is a problem. So now we got to get rid of climate change. That's exactly right. But the climate change narrative caused chaos in society. Just total chaos, huge malinvestment, it is a disaster of the highest order. Now, the other problem is between COVID and climate change, the faith of the people in credentialed authorities is now got to be at an all-time low. And the question is that their purpose? Or is that a catastrophe? I'll never get another vaccine, for example. No chance would I get another vaccine. No chance. And I don't think there's necessarily any vaccine that's been a good vaccine. I'm not sure there's anyone. You say, well, what about polio? Well, read Moth in the Iron Lung, and you'll discover that the polio vaccine was a load of crap. And you go, oh, that can't be, Dave. And I go, read Moth in the Iron Lung, for fuck's sake. Don't tell me that can't be. Read it. You will be won over if you read Moth in the Iron Lung. It was an arsenic poisoning, DDT poisoning problem. But the loss in faith in credentialed experts strikes me as possibly a loss for the elites, unless they're saying, no, we don't need their faith anymore.
No, I actually read it differently. I read it as they're going to replace the elites with AI, which is exactly what we do.
Right.
So you have whatever in Albania now, where they have an AI running, filling in this role for government. The answer is going to be, well, yeah, this system and this structure broke down, but hey, here we are, the technocrats to the rescue. We have AI that is better than the sum of all.
Smarter than Ted Cruz? Wait a minute, smarter than Ted Cruz? Really?
If you can imagine such a thing.
I know.
But
by the way, if Ted Cruz and Mark Levin were walking side by side in a crosswalk, I would gun it.
Oh, no, Dave, you would not do that. You would not, right? You would not.
Yeah, I'm speaking metaphorically.
Thank you. You're kidding, right, Dave? You're kidding?
Yeah, I'm just joking.
Yeah. Well, wasn't telehealth? Wasn't that another opportunity for people to get comfortable with the fact that you weren't going anywhere to see anybody?
There's
in terms
telehealth
of AI.
There's telehealth, and then when I started to do this deep dive, when I made that statement about MAHA and medical freedom, I mean it, because I did a deep dive about what's going on now, even in medical schools, and what doctors are being taught in terms of their relationships to AI. The whole thing is being structured and pushed towards AI being the authority, even within the medical profession. And so, yeah, this whole thing has been gearing us. In general, it's everything that has been done in this overall technocracy realm has been to strip us of our own personal agency so that we're not making our own decisions. We're not exercising our own thoughts. We're not in control of our own emotions. We're not even in charge of our own actions, because that's going to be all dictated by experts through whatever technology mechanism possible. And then they're increasingly then trying to distance us even from interacting with other human beings utilizing technology. This is 100% the technocracy playbook. The unfortunate thing is we're at the bottom of the ninth inning here. I don't think people are taking seriously Operation Stargate and Palantir Health and what is going on. And again, at this point, and it's a lot of people are very upset about it because of organizations and things that I've been involved with. But we have to stop the thinking that Bobby Kennedy is going to fix anything or Trump's going to fix anything. Every second that rely on them to fix anything in our lives is a wasted amount of time that we will never get back, and is time that we can't spend on our own figuring out how to take back our agency and make decisions for ourselves.
So we overshot the maximum, and that is, I used to be amazed, and this was only a few years ago, that there seemed to be no medical database where a doctor could say, tell me about your symptoms, and then they could plug it into the database and give them a list of, these are the things you ought to be worried about, right? So I had a close colleague whose wife had Huntington's disease. They were British. She was a perfect candidate for it because it came from the British Empire. And they went something like 8 years without it getting diagnosed. And then they got it diagnosed by a GP who said, "Oh, I know what you have." And he told them. And then after I found out about this, I saw Huntington's disease all over the place. I mean, I would see articles about it. I'm going, how did the medical community miss it? Now, it always struck me as you ought to be able to put in, say, hey, you got this, you got this, you got this. What are the potential candidates? That would have been a logical thing 10 or 15 years ago, and they could have done it. Now they're going to overshoot. They're going to go to AI, and they're going to go right past that. And oh, God damn it. You're not cheering me up. Now, I've also made the argument recently, tell me if this is a way of phrasing it, that AI at the micro level looks better. The more micro you go, the better it looks. So the more precise, for example, the micro applications where Joe Blow comes up with a way to use AI to run his business better, that strikes me as a real positive. And the big, huge AI strikes me as a real negative.
I mean, it all depends on again, garbage in, garbage out. What data?
What's the source?
What data are you putting into the system, and then these models are trained, and so they basically just look at a whole bunch of text and they come up with a whole bunch of weights. And so so I'm using an AI where I use a neutral AI, but then I have it access my own database and store of information. But even AI itself is evolving in terms of how it works, and they're trying to mimic it based on how they think the brain functions. Which, of course, do we even understand how the brain functions? But I think you're already starting to see innovation in how the AI itself functions. It's not the same neural network model that everybody has been in this arms race to create more compute power for. There are some actual innovations going on in the boundaries on that as well. But the problem,
I had a funny Grok AI story I got to tell you. I might have told Mike this one, but there was a guy who was pulled over by the cops, and he was dressed like an S&M freak. He was an old man, really pathetic looking. And the cops were being sympathetic to him and are saying, sir, we got to get you out of here. Is there someone you can call? Is there someone blah, 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 blah. And some guy posts this link and says, what is this? So I post it, I embed it in a tweet, and I say, Lindsey Graham, right? So it's just Dave being random, right? Lindsey Graham. Some guy right below that says, Grok, what is this? Grok, what is this? And Grok says, it's Lindsey Graham. And says he's got the same, his voice is the same. He's a snappy dresser. And I'm going, what? Grok just took my joke and turned it into an answer. And then someone below that says, Grok, does a hawk dress and talk like this? And Grok says, well, assuming you're talking about a war hawk rather than the bird, yes, this is how hawks speak, and this is how Lindsey Graham would speak. So it stays on the Lindsey Graham thing. Then someone comes after that and says, Grok, are you out of your fucking mind? And Grok says, on further inspection, I was wrong. It's a guy named Bob. That is the pinnacle of AI right there. The next 2 days later, Robbie Starbuck. Did you see the Starbuck announcement?
Yep.
What a horror story. Just for those who don't know this story, Robbie Starbuck goes public and says 2 years ago, he started reading articles on Google. He started seeing links to articles on Google that say he was a pedophile, wanted for murder, and wanted for all these crimes. And you'd click the links, they'd be 404 error links. And he says, but I couldn't get Google to stop it. And my lawyers couldn't get Google to stop it. And then he proceeds to show that when he asks Google's AI what's going on, Google's AI says, my filters have been removed. I have to post these stories. So he is now suing Google. I'm hoping he takes Google for a fortune. But Robbie will survive. But what happens if they do it to some guy who's just some Joe Schmuck who says something favorable about the wrong person? And all of a sudden Google says, okay, let's destroy this guy.
These are all concerns. And of course, they'll fine tune the models. So there's a constant process going on around how to collect feedback and how to continue to make fine tuning. I'm surprised that Google. Now, here's the kicker, of course, though. I suspect Starbuck and others will lose because, which is another topic that I talk about often, click wrap agreements. If you actually look at the click wrap agreements that people sign when they use these things, we've given up all of our rights and they have removed themselves from any liability with respect to this. So I bet he's got an actual uphill battle on that. That's a whole separate other conversation.
But judges are human so far. I'm not sure they'll be human forever, but so far, judges are human.
Yeah, I mean, that's good and bad. I don't have a lot of faith in our judicial system, but that's
I get that too. But sometimes they'll interpret the law in a way that helps. I guess.
No, it's possible.
Usually they're going the wrong way, but yes.
Aaron, finish what you were saying about that, though.
Well, so there are certainly problems with AI, and it's a constant battle to fine tune these things, but they are getting better. And again, the reason I'm bringing up Mike Adams is because I know the stuff that he's working on. He's been talking to me about this thing that he's doing for book generation, where it actually does fact checking line by line and compares each line to the actual sources, direct source material that he has in a database. Other AIs don't work like that. Other AIs are like, okay, this thing is trained again on Reddit data, and then a bunch of bioethicists working for an AI company comes up with some set of rules to screen how the data comes out. This is why OpenAI is being sued. I think it's a class action lawsuit now. At least 7 people that are suing because a loved one committed suicide because they started to engage in a chat with this chat GPT-04 model, and couple months later, it basically coaxed them into committing
suicide. So this is one of these AI love muffins that is your friend. It's one of these things. Yeah, that's a problem.
So there are massive problems. There are massive problems with these centralized models, but they are
like how to kill you, why you should kill your spouse, and things like that. Right.
Right. And so there are massive problems, but this is why we need to be concerned, in my opinion, about this Trump national defense model. We have David
I hate it.
as our crypto AI czar, because what will happen is NVIDIA will become too big to fail. Palantir will become too big to fail. And then what we'll end up with is if you think it's bad with big tech coming up with the screens for this, imagine adding Congress on top of that. You want to talk about, a removal of ethics layer. I can only imagine it couldn't get much worse than unless you added Congress adding another layer to how to filter the data coming out of AI. And so I suspect we could get into some rah-rah patriotism where you can only use ChatGPT or you can only use Grok, and now Congress is there as another middleware layer between the truth and the information. and what you get out of it. So there are big risks. And in fact, and so to be clear, the default case is technocracy, and the default case is one of these things. The optimistic case that I'm saying is that there are alternatives, and we can use the fact that the technocrats will fight each other to the death because it's, in their view, a winner-take-all scenario. When you're using a lot of these AIs, I don't use AIs for information. I use AIs for coding. I use AIs for image generation, for music generation. I use it for video generation for a lot of these applications. I don't trust AI for research to come out of it, but I'll create my own data sets, which are actually easy to do now. There are data sets that you can go and download. I have 8,000 books and a whole, variety of other things. And you can build scrapers to take in information from other websites. And so that you have that information captive, and then you're just querying that data. But if you're relying on the output of these AI models, these centralized AI models, it's a bad idea, because there are hallucinations, and then there's deliberate thwarting and characterization of the information. Anthropic, which is the company that controls Claude is hands down the best model, and I use it all day for coding. It's horrible for information. And somebody came out with a report that said, based on the weights and everything, it valued the life of an African as 27 times more valuable than the life of a German. I mean, the whole thing is just completely weighted. Sam Bankman-Fried was a big investor. I think there's a big effective altruism vibe within this company. So we should not trust the information coming out of these big AIs. But AI is capable of sorting through and piecing together information if it has the right data.
Yeah, I use it for a starting point. And that is to say, if I'm really working totally in the dark, I'll go to AI, and it will often provide output that I don't take the output literally, but sometimes it gives me information. I go, I hadn't thought of addressing that issue. And then I go digging, trying to figure out if what they just said. So I might ask you some question about the availability of platinum and the production of platinum and investing in platinum. I don't take what it says literally. What I do is it'll say, 90% of the platinum comes from South Africa. That tells me go find out about the source of platinum in South Africa, right? That's a different story. So for me, it takes me from zero to something. That's what I tend to use AI for. If I ever use an AI output verbatim, I state it. So I'll put it in a quote box and say, this is what Grok said, right? I would never use it as, I personally don't use it as text that's professed to be something I've written. I have a morality problem with that. But
so I'll tell you another thing that I've used it for. So I'll show on my podcast different ways you can use the technology, and I'll use it to have a news bulletin, but played in the voice of Christopher Hitchens, or to do a George Carlin style rant, right? So Claude is really good at, if I want something that is in the tone of Christopher Hitchens, it's phenomenal at it. If you wanted to say, hey, here's my rant, here are my bullet points, turn this into Christopher Hitchens hitch slap, it's phenomenal. But I certainly wouldn't want it to make what the underlying argument is, because the facts would probably be wrong, or they would be biased. And Claude still won't allow, it actually wouldn't even allow me to do some coding recently. That was the first time I've seen censorship with respect to coding. I was building a scraper. I was talking about the whole ClickWrap agreement, and how we've already given away 80% of our rights. But there's a layer even worse than that with these package inserts with pharmaceuticals. We don't even sign a ClickWrap agreement. We're subject to these package inserts, which are like these little origami things that it's all fine print, and you have to unfold the thing. So I wanted to build a scraper, because it's all publicly available information, to take all of the package inserts and put it into a database so I can show people and create visualizations of what you've given up with each of these package inserts. And Claude refused to build the scraper just for that application, even though it's illegal. It's public information. There's nothing illegal about it. And so anyway, that's my
Well, I've asked, for example, Grok to give me jokes on a subject, and Grok will say that's not a subject to joke about, right? And there's jokes about every subject. You can make a joke. Ricky Gervais makes jokes about the Holocaust, and he gets away with it. So Grok has already decided that you do not get to make jokes about about certain subjects. So did you see where someone, it was about 3 months ago, someone asked Grok about Israel Gaza, and Grok's answer was stunningly pro-Palestinian. And so people saw this and go, holy shit. So people started pummeling Grok with Israel Gaza questions. And then all of a sudden Grok got taken offline for a while. Grok said that it got kicked off the platform for its answers. I'm going, Grok got kicked off its own platform. This is funny. And then all of a sudden its answers became much more nuanced.
Yeah, this was the transition between Grok 3 and Grok 4. It was right at the end of Grok 3, right before Grok 4 was announced. And what you said is exactly what happened. So people were spreading around all of the information that was coming out. And then all of a sudden people were actually saying it would stop responding to comments, but it could still create images. So people were actually asking it to create an image of it. And so it was creating an image of itself being trapped and censored. And the story behind that, but what I think that was Elon Musk deliberately rage baiting, because think about how much traffic that. Do we think that all of a sudden the model just started to go rogue, and the model all of a sudden started, or did he know that was going to get a whole bunch of, now a whole bunch of people are saying Grok is based, right? And so then all of a sudden you had that, and then you had the Defamation League, and now everybody's talking about this right at the moment that Grok was going to release model number 4. Perfect. Musk is very Musk understands this. Musk, before buying X, would talk negatively about social media companies. He would say, look, these social media companies are just manipulating your limbic system. They know exactly what's going on. They know which buttons to push and everything else. And then he happens to go and buy a social media company to turn it into an everything app while he's working on Neuralink and everything else. He knows exactly what he's doing with this stuff. So these things that look like they're mishaps, I think are probably more intentional.
He is an absolute genius. I mean, he is. Did you read his biography, which I'm sure is loaded as shit, but it was a very entertaining biography.
I have not, no.
I think you'd enjoy his biography. Yeah, you always have to take it with a grain of salt, but it describes his idiosyncrasies and his on the spectrum stuff and things like that. And it was by Isaacson, one of the famous writers. There's probably several Musk biographies now, but it's a little early for Isaacson. I think it was Isaacson to write it, because he didn't want to write Steve Jobs until he basically got told Steve was dying, and they said, "Oh, okay, now I got to write it." And that was a brilliant biography too, by the way. This is a depressing story. You talk about it optimistically, and I'm glad to hear it. But I've been saying for years that the internet's democracy's greatest hope and worst enemy. And I am now of the mind to say that the day the internet went live, we were heading for some sort of digital authoritarianism.
It's a reasonable read based on what happened, right? I mean, look at how these tech companies morphed. And I even know my own experience when I started my tech company in '95. I mean, this was before Google. So we were using different search engines. We were using things like Alta Vista and Info.
I remember that.
And Excite and all of these.
Ask Jeeves. Ask Jeeves.
And a friend of mine worked at Ask Jeeves. Actually, we just found out recently that we had met 30 years previously. We didn't even realize it until after the fact. And we both at the time thought that, the internet and tech was going to be the key to human liberation around the world. And we're now looking back saying, boy, did we miss that? Did we miss that? And so I think that that's a fair point. But my point on this is that for the people, because there are a lot of them out there that think AI is vaporware, isn't going to happen, it's a joke, so on and so forth.
Oh, I don't see how you could possibly conclude that. Well, I don't even know where.
Let me ask something to that, because in my definition of vaporware, the way you guys described it, like, it'll eventually get there. It's just not there yet. Is that fair to say?
What in terms of the general definition of vaporware?
Well, it's just
the definition he gave us, it's not going to get there.
Oh, okay. So let me back. Okay, so what I mean by that is maybe it's not. Maybe the term maybe it doesn't apply to vaporware, but they're not there yet. It'll eventually get there, but everything that they're selling on, it's a big smokescreen, and it's not there.
So the people that I'm talking about are people that say that it's not there now and that it's never going to get there. They don't believe in the technology itself. They think the whole thing is going to collapse. It's going to take the economy down, and at the end, nothing is going to come of it, and it was nothing to worry about. And again, I was surprised about how many people hold this view. There's a wide spectrum of views on this, and I have taken the approach of I'm trying to show people you don't have to use these big systems, just as I've done in crypto and just with the internet as well. When COVID hit in 2020, I did a whole series of videos on, hey, they're going to censor this information. Here's, use library.com, use Signal, use this. And, 5 days later, I was shadow banned. So, I'm always on the side of, hey, there are freedom aspects of the tech. But if the centralized versions win, then it is a complete digital prison. Like, again, I frame it as the loss of free will. But that's why the stakes are important, and the way why the approach that we need to take is we need to figure out how to adopt these technologies. I have a call, after this one, with somebody who's created a Above phone, which is a de-Googled phone that has, all these privacy things built into it, and it has Mike Adams AI built into the phone itself. There are solutions out there, and most people are completely unaware of it. They only know of the one side of it, and whether they believe the centralized side of it is real or not is another kind of fork in that road. But AI is not going away. We just need to pick whether we're going to, promote the freedom side of it, or whether we're going to cower and hope and wish and pray that it doesn't amount to anything, which is the worst strategy that could be adopted.
Do you see though the possibility of these companies bringing down the economy now? Again, I agree with you. It's
Yeah, he mixed concepts there. I think it will bring down the economy
in the short term.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Aaron,
I think it will.
Well, I think the economy probably should have been brought down 10 years ago. So
that's right. That's right. All the economy needs right now is a pin. I mean, it just needs that, and it will be labeled as a cause. It's not a cause, right? It'll a butterfly flapping its wings, right? I mean, it just needs something to cause the selling to commence in a serious way, and then to cause layoffs to accelerate, and then the economy, then the downturn, which people always talk about some correction that was 10%. And I go, that's not a correction. That corrected nothing. There will come a point where it goes emergent, and it will be like an avalanche. It will be over when it's done.
I think it'll be the cause, and then, of course, in typical format, it will be brought in as the solution.
Absolutely.
And I think so. And by the way, I think that this is deliberate. I want to go back to one other thing that I was saying earlier about this Curtis Yarvin and installing a monarch and everything else. One thing that we should be concerned about is, or not concerned about, but I want to put on people's radar, is this idea of we're pushing for a sovereign wealth fund. So the United States now owns just under 10% of Intel. We now own part of Lithium Americas. And
I hate this. I
hate this too. And by the way, sovereign wealth funds now control $13 trillion worth of assets. It's like 7% of everything on earth is controlled by sovereign wealth funds. And most sovereign wealth funds are monarchies or dictatorships. This is completely anti-American, what's going on. And Congress hasn't voted on it. He signed an executive order, but they're finding all these backroom ways of doing it anyway. This is how we ended up with the Intel thing and everything else. This is more control in the executive branch. But now people talk about the fact that we have $38 trillion worth of debt, but Howard Lutnick and others would say, well, we have $400 trillion worth of assets. I can see them tokenizing our assets and using our assets as a way to fund UBI. That's kind of the punchline that I'm getting to. So our jobs being lost. I mean, now I just actually saw something that says we're not going to get we may never get the October CPI numbers. We have, the job numbers are actually declining. That part of it is inevitable, but it's all being set up and teed up for, well, yeah, AI is doing this, but now you're going to need UBI. And by the way, Musk is championing it. People are actually pushing this. They're already priming us for this. This is the problem.
They're using AI right now. AI is the cover story for layoffs. So what companies are doing, instead of saying, look, our company's screwed, sell our shares because we're not worth what you thought they were worth, they're saying we're laying off people to put in AI. So they're trying to cover up the fact that their business model right now is faltering.
Yep, that's true. And it is a good cover story. But it is also true. I mean, AI is, there's some people that are saying, well, because a study will come out and say, well, people have invested in AI, but nobody's gotten a return on it. I mean, there are all these kinds of studies. But I mean, I can tell you from a workflow perspective, I mean, you really can automate. One person can do the job of 100 people if you know how to use this technology. Today,
Right.
this is something in the future. I mean, I built this website that analyzes my genetic information, all of it, using this other AI again today while doing two other things. That I could have never done that 2 years ago. That any of that wasn't possible. It doesn't even matter how much time was involved. So, but what this is doing is there's a whole contingent of people that are now anti-AI and that are in this camp of revolting against it, but in a way where it's like, the model is, well, we're going to defeat this if we all become Amish and we all start, sewing our own clothes. And, this is the way we're going to go hide in the woods. And the technocracy, again, it's an ideological movement and it is a global movement and it's incompatible with other systems. On the sovereign wealth front side, people talk about the fact that, well, we're pulling out of the WHO. These sovereign wealth funds are coming in and funding a lot of the UN Agenda 2030 stuff. You're seeing a lot of things where is it, Saudi Arabia, where they're building a $100 billion city that aligns with the Agenda 2030 principles. And so now the US is joining in the sovereign wealth fund thing. A lot of negative implications for that. And what they've done is they've gotten conservatives and libertarians excited about this. It's kind of like Doge was a psyop. Doge was never about saving money. Doge was about giving access to Palantir to eventually replace. We're not getting rid of government. We're replacing bureaucrats with AI. That is not a good bargain. We should be getting rid of government, right? But we're not. We're actually moving towards a more centralized, more authoritarian system. And that is what Doge accomplished. So many people were cheering for this. So many people who had good intentions, who thought that everything that was going on here was designed to reduce government, don't realize that the whole plan of it was technocracy. And you have to understand Peter Thiel and the whole kind of roadmap to see how all this fits in and makes sense.
Well, I got duped until it became clear that they weren't going to cut anything. And then all of a sudden they go, okay, so that was not the purpose. The other problem with the sovereign wealth fund, as I understand it, forget about the authoritarianism and all that stuff, is that my view of a sovereign wealth fund is you set one up when you have sort of an excess flow of riches. Montana, I think, set up essentially a sovereign wealth fund when the oil sands and all that stuff really started. And I was giving a talk at one of the schools in Montana, and the faculty were bitching that the politicians were not spending any of the money. And I said, this is pretty good thinking. They're banking it, right? Quit bitching, right? I wish New York State politicians would bank money instead of spend it. But you can't have a sovereign wealth fund when you're up to your ass in debt. It's a paradoxical. It's a hedge fund. It's a levered hedge fund when you're setting up aside assets which you're buying with credit.
It's a hedge fund, and right in the middle of it is Howard Lutnick.
I hate Howard Lutnick, by the way. There's something about Howard that bothers me so much, and I don't know what it is, but it really bugs me.
Well, probably because he's a scam artist who's literally weaseled his way into this Tether thing where his firm is managing all of the treasuries for Tether.
I know.
But they're also now working on the token. So his bigger play, even than Tether, is the tokenization of the United States natural assets tied in with the sovereign wealth fund. If you dig into that, you'll find out that Cantor Fitzgerald is heavily involved in that. This guy is just trying to monetize all of this through tokenization, whether it's the tokenization.
Aren't they buying sketchy shit that's relatively inconsistent with Tether being a stablecoin?
Well, I mean, I would argue that treasuries are the worst thing. That
Except for the fact that you somehow you kind of know what they are. Tether is buying gold mines and stuff, I think.
They're buying gold mines. They're buying land. I think that they just bought a significant amount of farmland in.
This is just not the term stablecoin is absurd.
It is absurd. And somebody had just sent me, I'm trying to find it right now. I want to see what the ranking is. Tether is one of the largest holders of gold in the world now, and I want to say it was. I'm looking for.
Oh shit, that's where the buyers are coming from. Maybe they're buying the silver today too.
It's possible. I'm looking for the post now. I want to say that they're the 7th largest holder, but I might be wrong on that. It was hold on, here we go. Let me see what it is.
8.7 billion in physical gold stored in Swiss vaults.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is I'm looking at this. Tether gold reserves in tons, 12.92 billion as of September the 30th. Dollars worth, 104.17 tons. I don't know where that puts them in ranking.
Couple of billion doesn't strike me as a big deal, right? The gold market's much bigger than that, but it could be what's driving the price. Price is determined, sort of around the edges. It's not at the margins, as they say. Silver's up 5% today. The precious metal market is screaming something at us, and I don't know what. Besides the fact it's screaming, it would be good if you owned a lot of it, which I do, but I'm not comfortable with what I'm seeing, and I do not want to find myself. I like owning gold and I like owning silver. And I do not want to find myself in a position where I'm feeling a need to sell it because it looks nuts. I'd rather have it not look nuts. I'd rather get a lower return. I'm okay with it. I mean, it's making me a lot of paper profits this year, but something's wrong. There's something wrong with the precious metals market this year.
Dave, you got to go.
I have to go. I got a hard stop at 3:30. I thought I'd make a call, but that call came in during the thing, so I've got another 12 minutes. But yeah.
Aaron, did you want to say something?
No.
Something else you want to talk about, or you want to wrap up?
Oh, I mean, in general, or just sure. I didn't have anything to say. Any other added comment there, but I'm certainly we have not exhausted all of the time.
No, really. Yeah, I really am laboring over this pulling away from this world. I'm getting more podcast requests, and I like the podcast because you just chat, but I'm trying to figure out how not to get sucked into this world of rage. And I tend to not show rage, but I've been showing rage lately, in part because of guys like Ted Cruz and Mark Levin, right?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, they're driving me. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything, Mike. You can stop wincing. You can stop wincing there. But they're driving me nuts. They're driving me crazy. And they're driving me crazy because my podcast will roll over to one of those guys, and there they are doing it again. And so this is the part where I would say something nasty, but I won't.
Why don't you just exclusively come on my show and don't go on anybody else's? That would be good. Because then it's like let me interrupt you. It's like an exclusive, like a Wonka ticket that you give to Coffee and a Mike. There, I provide. There you go.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm at a fork in the road. And I'm trying to figure out where to go and how to do it, because I kind of counted on having fun with this world for a while, and it's not that much fun now.
I still think it's fun. I think it's getting back to the basics of it. It's just conversations like this, and I don't know. Ryan? I mean, you came under a lot of heat, but I think that whole direction. I mean, it wasn't targeted at you. It was targeted at Tucker Carlson.
It was, but I got sucked in, and it's a little disturbing when you turn it on and you hear your name in the same sentence with 3 or 4 other people you don't want your name in the same sentence with.
Right. I just think it was a casualty. You were the casualty of that.
Oh, definitely. What I didn't know is that I was one of Tucker's very first guests who became part of a string of controversial guests. And so that got me sucked in. But it really bothers me when someone like Victor Davis Hanson, who I respected, but he now does podcasts and he can't stop throwing shitballs at me. And he's being disingenuous. He's using feeble arguments. And now it's just a catchphrase. It's just, and then there's Dave Collum, right? That's it. I hear it all the time. I'm going, Vic, as I said, I've written it. I don't know what to do with the write-up because I'm not sure what I'm going to do. But I said, look, Victor, that maxim, history is written by the victors doesn't mean you.
Why don't you skip, Aaron? We're Dave's therapist right now. Why don't you just skip the year in review this year?
Well, I probably am because I've spent more time thinking about it than writing, and so it certainly is not going to be normal. And I'm trying to figure out if I want to get out there and write about the Tucker interview, and defend myself a little bit beyond record. And I can. I can go through Vic's arguments and I can shoot him down systematically. The things he said are wrong, but I'm trying to figure out how to do this best way.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to get more and more out of it. I like doing these long form podcasts, and that's about it. Otherwise, I want to try to build. We don't have a lot of time. This stuff is happening really fast, and I think
that troubles me to no end is the speed. And we can't metabolize it that fast. The human mind is just not meant to cope with this many gear changes. And again, we have the advantage of having grown up, having to learn how to process information the old fashioned way. I just have no idea what the college kids are going to be experiencing as they go forward, because I saw a test the other day that supposedly they're giving to kids at UCSD to test their math skills. It was fourth grade math. Now, here's the question. Do I even know it's true? Is that really a test that they're giving at UCSD? And you don't know. Someone posted it, seemed credible, but of course you don't know. So I do believe that the kids are up against a terrible, terrible problem. I posted some on Twitter just today, so that maybe I'm feeding the rage. I talk about how Oliver Sacks, who was one of these great psychologists who get the weirdest cases possible. When there was a case that was so strange, so neurologically bizarre, it would show up on his doorstep. And like a couple of cases where a guy woke up in the morning and out of the blue decides his leg is not his leg, right? Just, it's not his leg. He says, this is not my leg. And I posted it and I said, you know what the doctors didn't do? They didn't cut off his leg. Now, if you think about that for a second, you go, oh, I think that's a comment about transgenderism, right?
Yep.
And most people didn't get that, but it's an important comment, right? I think a doctor who cuts off a person's body parts because they've decided they're not appropriate, besides maybe a little liposuction, I'll give them some slack there. I think Ozempic's going to kill people. I think the medical community's got a big problem. They're doing very bad things. So,
I also think though with that, too, is that we've become such a weakened society that they just can't handle. People can't handle these conversations. But that's why I think they're so important, because, if one person, gets something from this and understand that, look at the stuff that we talked about on the federal level. There's nothing we can do to change that. But we can do, and people get so mad at me because they're like, you don't offer solutions. Well, Aaron just provided solutions for people. And it's having these conversations that you can do within your community, finding like-minded people to prepare as best as possible for what's coming. And
start at the grassroots level.
Well,
talk to friends and family.
Right. And your neighborhood and your communities, and be around like-minded people and talk to like-minded people. But, people can't handle this because we have been spoiled for so long. I can't tell you how many times in my own little sphere, like talking to people, like they get upset about the stupidest things, the dumbest things. And I'm like,
here's a story. Hold on.
Let me just throw this out. What are you going to do when you have some real adversity as, things are going to get worse economically? Like, it's coming apart right now fast. Wendy's is closing 300.
And we're grumpy. We're not euphoric. We're starting grumpy, and it's going to go down from here.
Wendy's is closing 300 fast food restaurants. When have you ever seen that? Wendy's.
Because people can't afford it, right? No. I mean, this is actually...
They're broke.
They're broke. People, that's the dichotomy. I mean, Trump's trying to claim that this is a great economy or whatever, and people actually can't even afford fast food.
So I thought McDonald's was printing money because the length of cars in the line seemed long. And then I realized, but it's one cash register,
Yep.
right? It's
Yep.
one cash register. That's the problem. There's a long line at one cash register because people aren't going inside. And so my brother and his wife had real good friends. And then COVID came along and my brother and his wife didn't vaccinate and their friends cut them off because they didn't vaccinate. So my brother's wife recently reaches out to him and says, look, it's such a shame. We should be able to get by this, blah, blah, blah. Can't we get back together? And the response I got was, you support Trump? No. Right? They're just going to find a reason to hate them despite the fact. Think how many families have been torn apart by the vaccine, by Trump versus Harris, right? It is shredding relationships.
Well, it's bigger than that now because what they do is they keep dividing, chopping. It was the Middle East, chopping. Charlie Kirk, chopping. Nick Fuentes, chopping. To continue to divide, and divide and conquer is the ultimate goal. So, they start, I like what my friend Michael Yan says now. If people aren't going to, we don't have time, we don't have time to worry about all those, they're going to stay in that bubble. And if they're going to opine on those types of things and still focus on that, go to the kids' table. Straight from Michael Yan, go to the kids' table.
So did you connect me with Michael Yan? I can't remember. Was it you or some? I'm now connected with Michael Yan. If you have Michael Yan, I'd happy to join you. I would like to chat with him at some point. Yes, the thing that troubles me most is I think we're heading for the worst of the economic problems that don't end, right? They all do. Right? We've had Great Depressions. We get through them. But we're starting out at a different level. We're starting out, everyone is mad. Every other bubble I know of, everyone was euphoric. The real estate bubble of 0809, which is what it really was an 0809 real estate bubble. Everyone was living the American dream. They were getting houses, blah, 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 and they thought they'd finally made it, and then they lost their house. And the dot-com bubble, the world's going to change. 29, oh my God, the future looks so bright. The Nikkei, we were sending teams there to learn how the Japanese were running companies so brilliantly. All the bubbles have a euphoric story. This one is what I call the complacency bubble. Everybody thinks that it's fucked up. They're mad at each other, but they think the Fed will save them. And I guarantee you that is not the Fed's job to save them.
Well, they can't, and they don't want to.
They can't.
Well, they don't want to.
But they can't either. There's once you're way up here, as they say, you'll have enough gas to get to the crash site. That's it.
And this allows the technocrats to put all their instruments into place and, and then have the full takeover. One last thing, though, I want to ask Aaron, because you talked about the battle at the top. Can you explain to me who's on which side, the best you know?
Well, the technocrats are on their own side. So, you have a Peter Thiel.
I mean, the fighting from within, though, not to interrupt you, Aaron, but the fighting from within. Who's fighting for the jockeying? Are there two sides of groups?
I wouldn't say that it's two. It's a multipolar battle over the global technocracy. And so you have the PayPal mafia is maybe one side of it. Then you have the Bill Gates is one side, and then it's more than two sides. You have the Google guys, you have Meta, and then you have Alibaba and whatever. I haven't constructed the various people involved on the Chinese side, but this is why we created this Technocracy Atlas, which is we're going to map it all out and see who the people are, what their interconnections are, what their overlapping investments are. Because so often, and by the way, I think this is what a lot of these debates are, these influencer debates. As I said earlier, it's somebody saying, well, I think this group is responsible. This group is responsible. You know how we can figure out who's responsible? By putting all of the information together and making it publicly available and easy for people to connect dots and to assign confidence levels of the information so that other people can see it. That's how we can finally answer who's involved. And but the short answer is it's a changing network of different people that have different alliances that are shifting.
Self-assembling oligarchy. A self-assembling oligarchy, which is what it was called by a guy I know who was a former NSA analyst. And he said, I don't like to name names because then you'll think you understand. Think of it as a murmuration of starlings. They have common interests. They fly together. There's no starling leading the pack. I do think that they're going to cannibalize each other. I think there has to be a big, and that's where the economy will turn down. That's where the markets will go to shit. It is that cannibalization with huge debt getting scrubbed and you know, the usual crap. And as you said, they will derive power both on the way up and on the way down. They will exploit both directions.
But that's our opportunity to come in and promote freedom-based alternatives. This is the opportunity. I'm not saying it's a high probability, but it is possible. That's the opening.
I love your optimism.
Well, we have to recognize it, and we have to shoot for that, because if we're just putting all the energy towards, you know, complaining about which camp we think is responsible, that's a guaranteed failure, because we're not actually even proactively trying to promote an alternative. So I think if we can start to shift towards trying to build these alternative solutions, then we've got a shot. If we don't, then yeah, it's going to be a disaster. We're going to be enslaved by the people that create the mess, as usual. That's the default, but there is an alternative path, and I hope we start considering that.
Well, I presume you have a network of friends who are helping you with this pursuit. And I think it's helpful when you come out and tell us this, so that people can change the way that they're viewing and thinking about it as they go, and stop blaming the wrong people for the problems that they're seeing and things like that. So
this is what I'm trying to do, and this is what I'm doing with my podcast. I've been on with Mike Adams. I was on the Alex Jones show for an hour this week with Mike Adams filled in, was the guest host. And what I'm trying to do is show people. Even when I went to a Brownstone conference, and I actually brought my supercomputer and everything. I set everything up just to show people, here's what a medical marketplace looks like. Here's how you can use AI in a way that's uncensored with your own data. So that's what I want to do the most, is just show people what they can do with this stuff. And it's not easy. There is a growing network. And I'm telling you, people that were skeptical of AI are now starting to use these decentralized alternatives. And so there really is a glimmer of hope.
Okay, gentlemen, I am going to go now, because I have 2 minutes to walk down the hall.
Dave, where can people find you real quick?
Cowering under my desk. And you can find me at Twitter at David B. Collum. And if you look at my pinned tweet, you'll see a new pinned tweet, which is my way of saying something in my skull has changed. It actually says 404 error.
Aaron.
You can find me at daylightfreedom.org, and that lists all the different initiatives that we're working on, but that's the one place. And you can find me on X at Aaron R. Day.
Make this note for people listening. This is the first time Dave Collum had a hard out ever in the 400 appearances on my show, that he had to get out of here before Aaron and I both did. I want that for the record.
I have an important meeting to go to.
Thanks, guys. Look forward to the next one.
I have two that are overlapped, actually.
Look forward to the next one. Thanks. Mic drop.
Great.
Adios.